Today we'll be talking about section 2.6, truth tables. We'll start off by talking about each kind. So there is conjunctions and disjunctions. Alright, a conjunction connects two or more statements with and. So an example that would be, you will eat a sandwich and you will drink juice. And so the symbol, which is very important, is your S and J. So it looks like this upside down V, looks like a tent. And you say it as S and J. Then we have disjunctions that connects two or more statements with or. So we have and or. And that would be, you will eat a sandwich or you will drink juice. And the S or J looks like a regular V. So S or J is pronounced just like that, S or J. So a conjunction is S and J is true only when both S and J are true. So both S has to be true and J has to be true for this conjunction to be true. A disjunction, S or J, is false only when both S and J are false. So as long as S or J is true, then it's considered true. But when both are false, then the whole thing is false. So for 1 through 4, we're going to use the statements to construct some compound statements. S is we will go to the beach, J is we will go out to dinner, and T is we will go to the movies. So my first statement is S and J, which would say we will go to the beach and we will go out to dinner, just combining my S statement and my J statement. My second statement is S or J. So instead I have we will go to the beach or we will go out to dinner. So the only difference is or instead of and. Number 3 says S or J and T. So we will go to the beach or, now I'm going to combine my J and T. We will go out to dinner and go to the movies. So there I'm just combining my J and T with my and just having my or in the middle there. And lastly, number 4, I have S or J and T. So we will go to the beach or go out to dinner, and we will go to the movies. So at this time, you can pause and go over these. Pause so you can just finish writing these down, and then move on to your next set, 5 through 8. So on 5 through 8, we want to determine the truth value. So we want to see if these things are true or false, and we'll talk about how we determine that. So, X is emperor penguins are black and white. Y, polar bears are a threatened species. Z, penguins wear tuxedos. Obviously, you know 2 of these are true and 1 of these is false. So, I just have to look at my symbol in between to determine if my entire statement, compound statement, is true or false. So, number 5 says X and Y. So for this to be true, both have to be true. X is emperor penguins are black and white. That is true. Y says that polar bears are a threatened species. That is also true. So true and true makes this true. Number 6, I have X or Y. So only one of these has to be true since X is true or Y is true anyway. Then I'm going to say that 6 is also true. Number 7, I have X and Z. So, emperor penguins are black and white is true, but penguins wear tuxedos is false. So, since one of these is false, then the whole thing is false. And last I have X or Z. So since X is true, that's the only thing that has to be true for a disjunction or an or to be true. So 8 is also true. So now our next example, it has a truth table, and I'm going to show you how we fill out a truth table. So each of these boxes is going to have a true or a false or a T and an F, and we determine that based on what our P and Q are or what P and Q are given to us. So here I have all these examples to the left and these P's and Q's to the top. So P says Ohio is a state. Well, I know that is true. Q says there are 50 states. Well, I know that's true. All right, now I have P implies Q. So I'm just looking to say, okay, P is true, Q is true. So true implies true is true. So now I have P and Q. So true and true also makes true. And then I have true or true, because P is true again and Q is true. True or true also makes a true statement. Moving to my second example, I have Georgia is a state and Miami is a state. So P is true, we know Georgia is a state, but Miami is a city, not a state. So I know Q is false. So now I'm looking at P implies Q as true implies false, which is false. True always implies true. Then I have true and false. True and false just makes false. And then I have true or false, and since I have one true option, true or false is always true. So now moving to my third one, I have 2 plus 2 equals 5 and 2 minus 2 equals 0. So P is false because we know 2 plus 2 is 4. And I know Q is true because 2 minus 2 is 0. So now I have false implies true, and in this case that is always true. If you have a false hypothesis, then your conclusion is always true. So now I'm back to P and Q, so I have false and true. Both have to be true for that to be true. So I'm looking at a false for that, and I have a false or true. False or true still stays a true. As long as I have a true in my or, it is true. And last but not least, I have P equals 2 plus 1 equals 4, and Q is dolphins are big fish. So I know P is false, 2 plus 1 is 3, and I know that dolphins are not big fish, so that is also false. So now I have false implies false, which is true, because false should imply false. Then I have false and false, which is false. And then I have false or false, which is false. So the only time that I have a false P implies Q is when I have true implies false. Everything else is true. And the only time I have a true P and Q is when both are true. Everything else becomes false. And the only time I have a false P or Q is when both are false. So there's a good reference for you for P implies Q, P and Q, P or Q, knowing when P and Q are true or false. So please use this as a reference. You can use this for your next couple problems if you need to. Let's go ahead and move on down to those. So sometimes you don't even need to know what P and Q stand for. They may not be defined for you. You may just have tables where they say, okay, P is true, Q is true, so on and so forth, and you just have to complete those truth tables. So looking at example A, I have P, Q. This notation again is not Q, this is not P. So just to go through those, P is true, Q is true, not Q means it's false, not P is false. So not Q or not P means false or false, which is false. Okay, second line, I have P is true, Q is false. So not Q is true, not P is false. So if I have not Q, which is true, not P, which is false, true or false is true. Third line, I have P is false now and Q is true, so not Q is false, not P is true, so false or true is again true. And then just to go through the last one with you, I have false, false, which means that not Q is true, not P is true, so true or true makes true. My last example, I have this nice big table here. So I have, in my one I want to solve for, P is true, Q is false, R is true, P or Q is true, because I have P being true there. So I want to know if P or Q and R is true or false. So I know P or Q is true, R is true, so true and true gives me true for this box. Now the next one I have P is true, Q is false, R is false, P or Q is true. So P or Q is true and R is false. So true and false makes this box false. And then I have P is false, Q is true, R is false, P or Q is true again. So I have true and false. True and false again makes false. So your notes should now be completed. If you need to go back and review any of this, please do that. If you're still a little foggy, please go search out some resources such as Khan Academy. They're very good at clearing things up. Other than that, you're good to start on your IXL.